This is CyberPodEU, the European cybersecurity podcast powered by Sockwise.
We are collaborating with a machine, but we are also surrendering a part of autonomy to. I think that basically what we are experiencing is a change of IT services, which is a large market with a lot of companies involved. So we are having a different value proposition of IT services with this new buzzword, AI agents.
Dear listeners, you are listening to the new episode of the CyberPodEU. I'm welcoming warmly Mr. Alessandro Aresu today with us, who is lecturing and authoring in the area of geopolitics and I would say technology, but he will tell about himself a bit more later on. So welcome and listen to a new episode. Hello, Alessandro.
Thank you for the invitation. Hi.
I'm very happy that you could make it. Alessandro, as I understood and as I got to know you, you are, I would say, a very colorful person because you have, I would say, lots of competencies in the area of technology and politics and also economics. And you have written different books in this area, but you are also lecturing and you are also consulting. Would you pinpoint some of your moments in your career which you find really interesting or which made you the person you are at the moment?
Yeah, first of all, I have a degree in philosophy of law. So I got interested studying Adam Smith, which was a philosopher, but also law scholar and the founder, of course, of political economy in the intersection of different disciplines and skills. And I started writing when I was very young for newspapers at the first year of university, so writing mostly about things that interested me in economics and international politics. So it was important for the start of my career both to be interested in the intersection of different areas and also in writing and trying to communicate to a wider audience. Then an important part in my career has also been working around public policy, trying to apply in the real world some ideas. I've been working or consulting for the Italian government for a while. A total of 12 years in the last years. So my core competence has been public policies at the Italian level, but at the same time I continued to write and do research, particularly during the last 20 years. I've been writing for a journal of geopolitics in Italy, which is called Limes, which is the Latin word for, boundaries. Limes is quite a popular journal in Italy, so it's really the publication that everyone interested in geopolitics and foreign policy reads. So an important part of my intellectual path has been trying to decide which areas of geopolitics to focus on, and that has been for me mostly geoeconomics, that is the interplay between geopolitical issues and economic issue. But then in the last decade, I'd say last 10 years, this interest in economics has been much more related with all the issues around technology, and therefore, because that was the main way to understand great power competition and conflicts, particularly US-China competition. So the last 10 years I became interested in how the law, and that reappears my original interest in philosophy of law, relates with technology, therefore lawmaking norms around both foreign investment, cybersecurity, and so on. And on the other hand, how some global technology companies play a role in the geopolitical arena. So I've written 3 books in Italian, which are basically around this idea, how technology and technology companies become an arena and an area of geopolitical competition, particularly some technological supply chains and technology. So that's a little bit of my path. You know, I have also other interests, particularly sports and cooking. These are 2 important areas of my life, I'd say. As you know, because we met, so you know that I go running every day.
Still?
Yeah, I do. And I'm also interested in Sardinian cuisine, so that's what I do generally in Italy, while when I'm south of Italy, of course, Italian cuisine mostly, because not many people know about Sardinia.
Yes, me too. I would be very much interested. Coming back to your books or your let's say professional career, as I was preparing for this interview or for this discussion, I was actually astonished how many referrals, how many citates you have in official, let's say, research papers. So not just in newspapers, but also your books are very popular. I would say worldwide, not just in Italy, but first of all in Italy. So congratulations for that.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, in Italy, yeah, they became very popular. It's a little bit of the interest of readers, but also, of course, policymakers and policy circles, and also the circulation of the journals where I write, not only Limes, but also Aspenia, Gnosis, which is a very good journal that is published in Ity by the security services. So I really write a lot. That's something. I also do speech writing and so on. So I think writing a lot is a way to let your ideas circulate more. And you know, another very good thing about books, and that's what I'm doing that now, is that when you publish it, you go around the country to talk about this. And in a country like Italy, it's actually very interesting, because it's not only large cities, Rome, Milan, Naples, and so on, but you find yourself in small towns, but where a lot of people are interested, and that's something I like. I think that what I like well, my favorite thing is bringing awareness on things that I deem important to high school students. For instance, I was very pleased that recently I received an email from a professor in a technical high school that was praising how my work were instrumental for him to bring some sparks of interest on current affairs to his students. So I think that's probably the best thing about your work being, I do not say popular, but with quite good circulation, is that you can bring to the public interest some things that are important, I'd say, compared to other stuff that we often talk about that is not so much important.
Yeah, I totally agree, and yeah, I think it's a very, very nice career so far, and you have a lot to do after this. I think you are still very young. Before we are jumping into the AI and geopolitics world, let's talk a bit about the IVLP journey, which is our, let's say, common memory, and it's I think it's 2 months away from now, or even a bit more. Could you tell what were your favorite moments of this journey?
Yeah, I'd say that wasn't my first time in the US because I've been to the US several times, but I liked the experience anyway of doing it another time. So probably because of that, highlights of my journey were the places where I hadn't been, so Colorado and Seattle. I liked the fact that through this journey you're able to experience, I won't say inner America, but a view of the United States that you don't commonly have. And you also have time, because you spend some time in those places. You are able to experience differences. Denver is different than the other places we went in Colorado, and you spend a lot of time there, so you're actually to see how people live, how everything is organized. So the fact that you experience other sides of the United States, I think it's very nice. Concerning the program, I'd say two things that I liked most. The first thing is this idea that the United States is not just a central government and it stops there. So you're really able to experience how the state level matters, the local level matters in the organization of everything. If you take politics, if you take cybersecurity, if you take economics, you're able to experience this, and related to this also how some areas of expertise. I remember very well the aerospace visit we did in Colorado, around Colorado Springs. There are some research centers or centers in places that you don't expect that have general relevance. The second thing I liked was certainly the team. Was a very interesting experience to meet you all. I think there was a good mix of people, so really a good chemistry, and I'm confident that we'll stay in touch after the journey. What about you? Are you nostalgic about the journey? What do you think 2 months after it?
I think it was very valuable. Yes, on one hand, getting to know all of you, especially in the video meet there, and the runs were beautiful in those different places. Yeah. But let's say from professional perspectives, yes, to experience how complicated, how many layers are there in, as you said, in the politics or in the field of cybersecurity, or I would say any industries we would pick there. But the way they cooperate with each other, on one hand, they compete, on the other hand, they cooperate with the universities, the private sectors, the local governments, and on state level, and also on federal level. So I think I just understood in gross with the big picture. But I think I could spend years on examining how it actually works. And I don't think we could learn so much from Europe, because the background culturally and economically is so much different, especially for a country like Hungary. So this is difficult to compare us. Yeah, Hungary is comparable to, let's say, one county in a more wealthy state. What I find very interesting is the universities and the culture, the economical culture actually around universities. So how much they are connected to each other and how can they have an effect on everything. I think it leads us to your topic as well. I mean, your core interest. Because, for instance, as we experience the semiconductor industry, how deeply it's incorporated into the university life, for instance, in the University of Central Florida, where we met people who are lecturing there, also former or current PhD students, but they have their startups, which have some fundings from the governmental level as well, and also from state level, and this is how they are incubating and, let's say, growing their added value to the economy and getting leadership actually in some areas still worldwide.
That's true. That's certainly an important part of the United States edge, let's say. Both that there's this human capital. I said the universities are quite large. There are a lot of them, so you have the top ones, you have mid-tiers, but that could be very good in some specific areas. Then you have community colleges, so it's a larger system. And also in terms of how many people do they get? They attract people from all over the world, and that's a key part of the success story of the United States in technology, and therefore in geopolitics. And then, as you said, and there's no complete separation between research and the fact that people want to earn money, build their companies, sometimes become wealthy as a measure of success. So you have a lot of money flowing there, and I think that this last part is a real divide between the general European system and the American system. I mean, it certainly doesn't. It's a divide that Europe has not been able to close on, because the research part and technology in terms of several commercial activities at all levels, they are still too much disconnected, and that's not how the world works. I mean, the world works in how it has been developed around this close relationship between research, products, commercialization, and so on. So that's really a valuable lesson.
Yes, it really leads us to your work, and I'm not sure if you did it on purpose, but as we had our date for today to make the recording, it's just a couple of weeks ago that your book was published around Geopolitics of AI, and now we see the latest reports coming out from OpenAI or Google with their newest models, and it's just unbelievable. I think it was the best timing you could find for publishing your book. What did lead you to this area, and how could you analyze this very quickly changing area? Too many questions in once, but I'm really interested. What's your impression of today?
So first of all, what led me to this area was semiconductors and microelectronics, because my last book was a lot focused on analyzing the previous book on analyzing US-China competition around both the supply chain of semiconductors and the supply chain of EVs, electric vehicles. So the idea of that book was that in a nutshell, China has already won the EV competition, and that remained so. The book was published in 2022, while semiconductor industry is very complicated, enormously complicated. So even if China was investing a lot and doing a lot of stuff, there were some core competences of companies that were far from there. So a lot of discussion of that book was on a company, a Taiwanese company called TSMC, founded in 1987 by this now more than 90 years old guy called Morris Chang. It is the main producer of semiconductors in the world. That means that those chips for companies like Broadcom, Apple, Qualcomm, they are produced mainly by TSMC. So a lot of objects in our life, for instance, the smartphone, they exist because there's this ability to produce by TSMC. So studying TSMC, I also encountered another company, NVIDIA. I became a lot interested in that company. I couldn't give too much space to NVIDIA in the 2022 book, but I decided my next book is going to be on NVIDIA, because also the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, who is this now famous guy, always wearing a black leather jacket of a motorbiker. He was born in Taiwan, and he moved to the United States very young, when he was 9 years old. And I became interested in the relationship between NVIDIA and TSMC, and how NVIDIA was positioning itself not only to do chips for video games, which were the original end market, also cryptocurrencies, autonomous driving, and other stuff, but what Jensen Huang talked often about, which was artificial intelligence. So I studied the company very carefully, analyzing it's a listed company, so there are a lot of documents in the last 30 years, but also studying speeches, conferences, and so on. And then my book proposal was the fact that this company was the real deal, basically, because it has positioned itself as an ecosystem company, we could say. To make it clear, there is not simply a chip, the so-called graphic cards, GPU, produced by these guys, but they sell a system for data center operators. So this system, which includes also memory built by other people, the Koreans, and cables, interconnects, networking, a lot of stuff. They wanted to make a lot of money with this system, and they had a thesis a few years ago that data centers around the world were going to change because of artificial intelligence. Then I got lucky with my book proposal because ChatGPT came out at the end of 2022, and so my publisher is a large publisher, and he said to me, okay, NVIDIA, but who knows about this company? And then, okay, you have ChatGPT, so DeepMind, OpenAI, those companies, everyone is going to be interested in this, so that's a good thing. Even if at that time, at the end of 2022, the stock of NVIDIA was going up, but most people haven't already understood how the company was key to this ecosystem. So my line of work is always you find a supply chain. In this case, is the supply chain of artificial intelligence, which basically is an evolution of the digital supply chain, the semiconductor supply chain. It's not, of course, like software and everything. You are building something on top of an hardware system and on top of a supply chain system, and then there are basically software companies who are devising their products and so on. Okay, so you have this supply chain. So my idea is you analyze the supply chain, and then you try and understand what does it mean geographically / politically. So where do these companies and people come from, and what does it mean, this evolution, for the purposes and evolution of governments. For instance, how many Chinese students and researchers have been instrumental in the growth of American technology companies, particularly related to AI. What role does Taiwan play in that area specifically? And so I try and answer to these questions, also moving back again to these things related with the law, therefore foreign investment screening, export controls, and sanctions in particular, because I think that that's a way to put this technology picture in overall political picture, and therefore I tell a story with these pieces, because if you tell a story, you're able to make these things interesting for not a huge audience, but a large audience, because if you just talk technically, you're not going to have an audience.
And who did you find the most interesting person you made an interview with, or is there something in particular you would name?
For this book, I haven't done interviews. So in the previous book, that's a way of the way I work. For the previous book, I've done interviews, and the parts on which I have done interviews, in my view, were worse than the other parts. Because it's if you're telling a story, my idea is that you don't have to meet people. I don't want to meet people like Jensen Huang. I don't want to meet him. I know I can't meet him, but if they tell me meet him, make an interview, I don't want to do it because I build my story around what you can freely read, not on specific access by someone. And in my previous work, when I've had access to someone, the work wasn't better, it was worse. Actually, well, sometimes I've written stuff, of course I've done interviews for journalistic work, but I think book writing is a different thing. In my view, it's so I remember, for instance, an interesting character an interesting story that I've discovered around NVIDIA. I find it really astonishing when I knew it, is that there's this guy who is the chief scientist of NVIDIA. He's called Bill Daly. He's an important computer engineer in the United States. So when I was researching around the company, I actually discovered that, of course, he was a consultant before, but he actually resigned from the post of Dean of Computer Science at the University of Stanford to be the chief scientist of the company. That was knowing this detail, that an important computer engineer and professor in a world-level university of Silicon Valley resigned in 2009, so more than 15 years ago, to become the chief scientist of this company. This made me understand very early that this company was going to be extremely significant, because you gotta be crazy in order to. And the other stuff, interesting stuff on the it's more difficult to know. For this also I don't do interviews, but I try and talk to some people around the Chinese technology environment, and particularly what Huawei was doing after the sanctions by the United States in 2020. For instance, they were working a lot with mining companies, not crypto mining, but real mining around China, to build data analysis solution to make life easier for people in mining, energy, and also ports, logistics, this stuff. I mean, this inventiveness by Chinese companies when they seem they are in an angle weaker, but they always come back with some other areas and solution. That's another very interesting thing, I think.
And seeing the recent news, do you think that your book is already old? I mean, did you change your perspectives seeing the latest news, or it just reinforces, confirms your understanding, your conclusions? Yeah, you've been examining this area for a while. So what do you think of O3 or the new Google model?
I mean, my view is that hardware always matters, first of all. Therefore, you can have more solutions, but one thing I'm certain is that you're not, it's going to be difficult for me and you to have a program when we ask to this program, build for me a new liquid cooling system for data centers, and the program is going to be able to do it. The program is not going to be able to do this. The program is I'm not going to be able to prompt, there's this Taiwanese company called TSMC, it's doing this and that, build me this company, my dear program. It's not going to happen in the short term. Therefore, there are always going to be constraints on the hardware part. And hardware now also means energy, water, so a lot of stuff that is happening beyond the surface, but it's getting to the surface because we cannot use technology without all of this. So for this, it's not old. It's not going to become old, and also I think for the central role that some companies have. So the problem is that you got entry barriers in this area. So now, for instance, for the main player, say pure players in the AI space, consider OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepMind. So they are not their own companies. OpenAI is mostly owned by Microsoft, and it can operate because of Microsoft infrastructure. DeepMind has been a part of Google since 10 years, and Anthropic is mostly owned by Amazon. So it's difficult to envision that the property structure of technology companies will move, beyond this circle of big technology companies. You can have other players, say Tesla, doing more stuff in those areas for several reasons, but it's difficult to understand, to think that you have someone popping from nowhere without any relationship with this environment. What gets old is basically the product. The product gets old because the product has changed significantly. For instance, for me, for how I work, the introduction of notebook LM has been a significant step. So now I do have a tool in which I can put 8 YouTube videos and combine them very carefully with specific questions, and then have a detailed summary of that. And then we can build podcasts in English around that, combining that with 2 books if we want. And of course, we're gonna have a notebook LM in Italian and Hungarian. It's certainly gonna happen. And from what I hear from people I talk to, also computer programming has been already significantly changed by these tools. So the pace of change is significant. And one still missing piece is what some scholars call spatial intelligence. So more advancements around not only image and video recognition, but its its actual efficiency around robotics and industrial automation and manufacturing. So I'm eager to see whether we're gonna experience something more around that. And there's also, I think, the autonomy part, which also relates with risks and cybersecurity. Now we are having this wider circulation of so-called agents. And that means basically that we are collaborating with a machine, but we are also surrendering a part of autonomy to a program. For instance, consider when we say, okay, you can, we are saying to the program, you can use my screen. And then do this and that. What are you doing? So we are interacting with the program, but we can also think of several use cases in which we are not interacting with the program, with the screen, but the program is programmed to take advantage of a screen of someone else and do in a really more efficient, in a malevolent way, a change of sovereignty of what you do in your work because of the purposes that have been programmed in this agent by a series of malevolent actors. So it's not malware. It's like not more than 100 times malware, both in terms of how you can do it in quantitative terms and qualitative terms. So that's also a development we need to take into account.
I'm afraid so. And how about the industry side of it? So did you check out what are the impression on the cybersecurity industry of the AI? Because we see some sort of consolidation, which happens, I think, all over the IT. Did you looked at it from closer perspectives?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's a way of consolidation now. Also, consolidation as political aspects. One of the things I have studied recently is how the Chinese antitrust is operating. You know that if you are doing, for instance, consolidation of say US company with an Israeli company, but this Israeli company has revenues of more than several tens of millions in the Chinese market, which happens very frequently. There needs to be authorization by the Chinese antitrust regulator. And what we have seen is that China is using this regulation power in political terms. So authorizations can come very slowly, say 2 years, but they can also have conditions where they can come back. So this consolidation of the industry, if you are a company that has interests in revenues in several markets, can also become a political issues, and companies that are not so large, not very large companies, but mid-sized companies, for those companies to navigate things like the Chinese regulation, it's not so easy. So yes, I've had talks around that. But also around, for instance, in Italy, what is interesting in Italy. Let's consider around cybersecurity. First of all, there's work at the institutional level, because the Italian Agency of Cybersecurity was started basically less than 5 years ago. So they are still building the structure in terms of people, for instance, technical skills, huge issue of competing, of course, with private companies, not only for Italy, US companies, but for instance, if you stay in Switzerland and you are a computer engineer, you can have a very attractive salary compared to the one offered by an agency in the public sector. So there's this area. And then the other area is awareness by Italian companies. Italy is still an important country in manufacturing, second manufacturing power in Europe after Germany. Of course, is suffering a lot the slowdown in German industrial engine at several areas, particularly machinery. But machinery is a strong area of competence in the Italian economy. So what I often see is that traditional companies operating in machinery, on the one hand, they try and invest in digital, so not only cybersecurity, because they are backward in digital and they are trying to do some investments around that, but also thinking about acquisition of sometimes software solutions or companies that they can embed in manufacturing process. Around this area that is called connected machines, for instance. I recently went to Rimini, because there's one of the global leaders in the machinery for wood making. Therefore, if you are IKEA and you need to work on your wood for your products, you buy those machines from Rimini, and that's Rimini, another place in Italy, and a few places in Germany, and they are the global leaders of these niche markets. So they have connected machines. You go to their plant and you can see both the usual machines, and then you have the digital connection of all the machines that are connected in order to build a solution around customer services, where they started using LLMs and other AI, for instance, and then you also need to have some courses and skills around cybersecurity, because you gotta protect the intellectual property and the machines.
It's actually, I'm pretty sure that you have read the Draghi report.
Sure.
And I think this is
I've
one of
worked
the
with Draghi when he was Prime Minister, sure.
Oh.
So I know a few of the economists that have worked with him on the report.
Amazing. I think because you pinpointed the machinery, and I think this was one of the chances of Europe. Is that correct? In their report, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, in industrial automation and machinery is still a thing in Europe. I think that's it. Also chemicals are an important part, because it's a foundational industry for the energy transition as well as the digital transition. But you know about the report. I'd say two things stand out. First thing is that the report says that in Europe there is too much regulation, and so this is not attractive for entrepreneurship. I won't say, of course, that doesn't mean that all regulation is bad. Some regulations are, of course, they have been done for several purposes, but I mean, probably it's time to make a fair analysis and say, is all these things like compliance, sustainability directive for small, medium enterprises, I mean, do we really need all these things? I'd say a good outcome of the Draghi report would be, okay, let's make an exercise at the EU level and at the national level, and let's say which regulation is harming our entrepreneurship. I mean, there must be some, because a lot of people in the world think like this, including Draghi. And of course, the second part is more investment. That's going to be difficult to obtain, because at the European level we have done Next Generation EU after the pandemic, and that was supposed to be a first step of common investment, but then what is going to be the second and third step is unclear, frankly, because of course there are different debt to GDP ratios around Europe, different financial yields of the treasuries. Some economies are in less in shape than others. For instance, now France is very concerning to some, and it's difficult to find, frankly, a common agreement around that, also on further pooling of sovereignty at the EU level. So I'm not sure that the investment part of the report will ever be realized, frankly. So I'd say from in the next weeks, both the EU and at the national level, at least let's say for once which regulation we can avoid in order to make life easier for entrepreneurs and companies. At least let's do that.
Yeah, I think it was nice that you mentioned investment, because our headline of the week is about investments. So the headline of this week.
Headline of the week.
We are talking about is coming from crn.com, when they made let's say a summary for this year, for let's say last year or the old year, about AI. What were the most important, most interesting news from the artificial intelligence world? And there, the first thing, so the most important among them was the investment from players like Google Cloud and Amazon and also others in the direction of AI agents. So our companions, as you said earlier, sir. So our partners working with us, or unfortunately sometimes instead of us. Do you agree with that article? What is your prediction with regards to AI agents?
Yeah, I think that basically what we are experiencing is a change of IT services, which is a large market with a lot of companies involved. So we are having different value proposition of IT services with this new buzzword AI agents. So from so on, we've had IT services that sometimes companies didn't need, but now we are going to have certainly more detailed services built around this idea of IT agents, which, as I said before, also AI agents can be considered from the other side, the dark side, as harmful agents. And so we're going to have agents looking for harmful agents on that part. That's going to be the other proposition. And it will change from industry to industry. I think customer service certainly is going to be the industry in a short term facing a huge upheaval coming from these AI tools.
And let's say as a closing thought regarding the development of the world, in the world of artificial intelligence, do you belong more to the optimistic or to the pessimistic group of people, and if so, why?
To the optimistic, I believe, because I think humanity can cope with any kind of technology. My pessimistic flair has to do with the narrative of companies. So I'm a lot against companies which are almost all companies saying that they work on behalf of humanity. That's never true, because companies work only on behalf of their purpose, which is growing and making money. So I think that the general optimism needs always skepticism in terms of analyzing the interests of companies, even if companies are those driving those innovations, and they need to be praised for it.
Thank you. And thank God that you are optimistic, because it's best to close a podcast recording with some positive thoughts. So I'm really grateful that, Alessandro, you have been with us in this episode. I would be grateful to have you again in the future. So thank you very much for being with us, Alessandro Aresu, today in CyberPodEU.
Thank you again.
Thank you. And dear listeners, you listened to the CyberPodEU. So just be as you were before. Just keep safe and work for cybersecurity as you did before.
This was CyberPodEU, the European cybersecurity podcast powered by Sockwise.